Hey, good morning, flowery folk, or good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are listening. How are you all? Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for your support so far. I've been so excited to read the recent comments and messages from our last few episodes. It seems that a lot of the things we've been talking about is actually resonating with you, which that's great because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing. I want to share ideas, inspiration, just chat to you guys about this lovely flowery world. And yeah, thank you for following along. In our episode today, it's actually come about from my recent chat with Zoe Mill from A Willow and Bloom in Mackay, Central Queensland. That was episode 7, I think. It was a lovely chat. So please go back and listen to that. Listen about all the fun things that Zoe's doing in her shop. And yeah, she's just a great, great woman. She's going to do some cool things, I think, in the future. But one thing that came up in our chat was that she struggles with switching off at the end of the day. And I know personally, I have that problem myself. It is really difficult just to turn that brain off sometimes. And from your feedback, I see that it's not just me and Zoe struggling with this. So today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some things that I've tried or things that other people have suggested to me that I try to help manage this always on creative brain that I seem to have, and obviously so many of you guys have as well. So, but before we get into that, again, just touching on my thanks to you all for following along. Really do love hearing your feedback. So please tell me, if anything in particular that we discuss in different episodes, if you find it helpful. If you want to know a little bit more about different topics, please reach out. Let me know. I'm about to sit down and record a few more guest interviews. So if you know someone in this flowery world, whether they're a florist, they're a grower, wholesaler, whatever, and you think they'd be good to chat to, please let me know because I'd love to talk to some more people in this industry. That's what keeps it fun. All right. So today's episode, as I said, it came about after my recent chat with Zoe from A Willow and Bloom, and she opened up about the struggle that she has with turning off at the end of the day. And we talked about the creative mind. Obviously, that's sort of the problem with that, and that we both sort of shared that issue about not being able to turn off. And it's something that I have always struggled with. I can't sort of say definitively, I've got the perfect answers and this is what you need to do to learn how to relax at the end of the day. But I've got a few tips that might be helpful with you. And for those of you that may not sort of have an issue with turning off, oh my God, that's great. Please share your tips with us because, I do understand it's not something that everyone probably struggles with. I know I've had these conversations with my husband and I've asked him about it. It's like, does your mind just sort of wander off onto these sort of crazy ideas and this, and this? And he sort of just looks at me like I'm an idiot. And it's like, oh, no. So I'm gathering he doesn't have that issue. So today, when we go through my list, some of it is sort of relating a lot to social media, iPhones, all of that sort of stuff, because I think that is probably a really big part of why probably not even just creative minds have trouble switching off, but any sort of business owner, because we are attached to this bloody device that has everything and anything on it. So if we want to research something, we can. If we want to check emails, we can. If we're thinking someone's going to call us, they can. We can get on socials. Like this phone has so much going on, and I think it's a bit of a distraction. So there's quite a few points that talk about phones and social media and how we can sort of manage that. So that's obviously, I believe, a big part of it. Social media is huge. I think as a creative person, people running creative businesses, We probably get on social media in an effort to relax at the end of the day. But I think what happens is then we're following a lot of other creative businesses, possibly lots of other florists or flowery people, and that gets that mind going constantly about, "Oh, look what they're doing. Oh, that's an awesome idea." And it just triggers another thought, which triggers another thought, which triggers another thought. Like, it's just crazy. Now, when I was writing notes for this episode, I was sort of thinking about the fact that we're gonna have all this research in years to come to tell us basically how fucked up our brains have become because of all this social media that we're consuming. And then I remembered back to a few podcasts that I had listened to in which they did talk about the research that basically it's already telling us how fucked up our brains are because of social media. And it just highlights the fact that it's probably not great. There's a lot of research out there now that is actually showing people feel worse when they get off social media. Not all platforms, but things like Instagram, particularly. We think we get on there because it makes us feel better and inspired. But the science is telling us it's actually making us feel a lot worse when we get off. We start to feel things like jealousy. We start to feel a little depressed because what we're seeing are probably like the highlight reels of everyone else's life. And it's sort of making us feel a bit shit about our own. And if you put that in the perspective of business, we're seeing what all these other florists are doing, maybe what these other flower growers are doing. And we might feel a little bit of envy, jealousy, and might start to feel a little bit shit about what we're doing ourselves. So I don't necessarily think it's something like say don't ever get on, but I do acknowledge that there's issues with it and keeping that in mind and the fact that we get on it as business owners because obviously we want to connect with our audience, we want to talk to our customers, all of those things. We want to show them what we're doing. Get on that app and to do that part of it, but then we get sucked into, scrolling and down that rabbit hole. And before we know it, we've just wasted half an hour of our life and we're not feeling good about ourselves. We're feeling guilty that we've got distracted with our work instead of maybe chatting to our kids or our partners or doing something else and having a life. So, the first thing I'm going to hit on, obviously, is going to be social media. So this is something that was suggested to me by a amazing business coach I worked with. She had said or suggested that setting up limits on key social media apps, or actually you can set it up on anything, but if you've got an iPhone, I'm assuming you do it on any phone, but I've got an iPhone. You go into your settings and you can select daily limits for different apps. So what this does is it will send you a little reminder or notification when you've hit that limit, whatever it is. I think it's in 15-minute increments, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is that you set. And it's a really good reminder because we all know that it's particularly, I keep going back to Instagram because that's probably what we're on. I don't know about TikTok. Oh, it's too scary. I'm an old lady. But when I talk about Instagram, it is something that we know is designed to keep us scrolling and scrolling. It sucks you in. And before you know it, you've spent 45 minutes of your life, God knows what, looking at just shit. Anyway, so this is a notification that pops up on your phone to say, hey, you've reached your daily limit of whatever it is, say 30 minutes. You can override it. So maybe if you are actually doing something you need to be doing during work time and not in your free time, but you can override it. Or the other thing is, it's just that reminder to go, oh, wow, okay, no, I just got on to do one simple thing or to relax for 5 minutes. I do not need to be on this anymore. So that is a really great tool. As I said, in the iPhone, you just go in your settings and it's something like device daily limits or something like that. So quite amazing to set up. So highly recommend that. I do that myself. Just as a reminder, hey, I've got 15 minutes on mine because personally, that's probably all I need to waste. I've got a lot of shit I need to be doing. I should not be looking at social media any longer than that. So I highly recommend that. Suss out where you can find that on your phone, set it up for whatever apps it is that you're finding are distracting you and stopping you from switching off after work. Another thing that I've got enabled on my iPhone is I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's like the screen time notification. So at the end of each week, I get a message from my phone telling me how much time I have been on my phone. Holy shit. Some weeks I'm serious, some weeks it's gonna tell me I've been on my phone for 4 hours a day. Now, that just blows my mind. That's a lot of time. I know that we need to be on our phones for work, yes, but I have since found out because a good friend of mine did mention this to me, that that does include things like if you've got podcasts open and you're listening to podcasts. So that made me feel a little bit better because when I drive and I drive a lot, I do listen to podcasts. So I was like, okay, maybe that 4 hours was when I was doing a lot of driving, which is okay. But anyway, so I just find it's a great tool to remind you how much time you're spending on your phone. And if you're aware of something, it makes it easier for you to try and I don't know, fix it's the right word, but maybe you're aware of that you're using something a lot, so maybe you can take steps to reduce that or just understand where it's going. In that notification, when you click on it, it will actually tell you where you've been for all of that time. So that's a great tool again. Was I on my emails for 3 hours or was I on social media? Where was I spending that time? It's as I said, it's just a tool to make you aware of what you're doing on your phone. Another great tip is that, again, back to Instagram, that if you use Instagram on your desktop rather than on your phone. So we always tell ourselves we're just popping onto Instagram to do something for work. If you do it on your desktop, you can get in there, you can do all of the stuff you need to do. I know there's a little bit of limitations sometimes with creating, but you can create content, all of that. But it's not as easy to start scrolling. I'd get on there and have a look. You might look a little bit, but it's really difficult. It is not set up to be scrolled on a desktop. So it is a great way of getting on there, do what you have to do, and then you're not inclined to sit around for an hour wasting your time when you should be doing other things in your life apart from being on social media. And once you've got that set up, like and when you're using your desktop, you could possibly get rid of it. I don't know, might be controversial. Take it off your phone. I definitely go through periods where I take social media apps off my phone. If I've found that they are distracting me after hours, sometimes you'll get into habits where you start getting on them late at night. It's bad. So if they're not on your phone, it makes it more difficult to do that. And after a few days, you will resist the compulsion to pick up your phone because it's not there. So that's another great thing that I have definitely had success with is just removing those apps altogether from your phone. You can then set aside time within your workday to do what you've got to do on the socials. So you get on your computer and you can do it all that way. Another alternative to that is also having a third party app that manages all your social media. So it's like Hootsuite, Planoly, Plan. Like there's a myriad of different apps out there that will manage your social media. So you can post through them, you can reply to messages through it, you can reply to comments, the works. You can do everything in this app without you having to go into the Instagram app or whatever. So that is again another thing you can take Instagram or whatever the social media platform is that is distracting you after hours, take it off your phone altogether and use these other apps to manage what you have to do for work. Because I know myself personally, I always use it as an excuse is, oh, I've got to do this for the business. I need to get on. I need to do this. I need to do that. So by removing the actual app, but still having the ability to do what you got to do for work through these third party apps, or as I said, on the desktop version, you can still do what you have to do, but it's not going to distract you. That's the great thing. So try that. Another thing, moving away from social media, because maybe I'll get some nasty messages from Instagram. But another thing I have done, and oh my God, it was so good. I'm going to keep doing it in the future, is removing emails from my phone. I said this to a fellow business owner, friend of mine just recently. He runs a busy workshop. He was complaining that he kept getting these emails while he was having downtime, holidays, all of that. And I said to him, I just took my emails off my phone over the whole Christmas period. So what I do is pretty quiet from about November to April. I took my emails off my phone in actually, I think it was in November, and I didn't put them back on until probably late February, early March. It was great. And he was sort of like, "Oh my God, you did that?" I was like, "Well, you set aside time in your workday to check your emails. So you deal with things that you have to deal with. But the great thing is, because it's not on this bloody device that we're carrying around all the time, it helps you manage, again, that compulsion to just check. How many times have we said to ourselves or our friends that we're having dinner with or our family that we're trying to be doing something else with after hours? Oh, I just need to check my emails. Like, do you really? After 5 o'clock, unless obviously something really heavy is going down, you probably don't need to check. So, by taking those emails off my phone and then getting into a habit of obviously when I sit down at my desk during my work day, I would check my emails then. And oh my God, it was so good. I'm going to admit I have them back on my phone now because I am in and out of the studio. We're busy with wedding season and I really can't get my shit together enough to keep track of all the information without being able to quickly access some previous emails sometimes. So it is back on, but those buggers will be gone once I get to the end of wedding season in, let's say, September. They're off my phone and I'll just get back into that habit of getting back into the office. So please try that. Take them off. Get into a habit of just checking at work. And then when you check the last one at whatever it is, 5 o'clock, when you switch off that computer, that's it. You don't really need to know. Just remember, they can call you if it's really, really bloody urgent. All right. So that I think is pretty much all I wanted to mention about that sort of stuff. All right. And some other things that you can do, look, got my list, is finding some alternative things to do. Now, we hear this all the time. Go for a walk, go for a run, whatever. But it is actually true if we can find something else to do. And ideally, again, if we can find that thing to do without carrying around our phone, such as going for a walk in the afternoon. It doesn't even have to be long. It could just be 10 minutes. I'm sure we can all find 10 minutes, especially now that we've managed to get rid of Instagram and TikTok and our emails off our phone. Please, I'm sure we can find 10 minutes to go for a walk. And that can help also in our mind with some relaxation. Yes, we're probably going to see things that are going to spark ideas, but it's beautiful being in nature. We all know it's relaxing. Science to say that it makes us feel better. So maybe just trying something like that would be helpful. Some other things that you might find helpful regarding switching off and some downtime. Personally, me, as I said, my brain's always going. There is one thing I can do and my brain completely switches off, which I don't know if it's a great thing because it's really dumbing me down. And maybe you're going to think I'm a complete dick for admitting this, but Netflix or TV, just some sort of random shitty movie is a great way for my brain to switch off. So if it's been a really crazy week and I felt like I've been on all the time thinking about different things, planning different things, I really like to sit and watch some sort of crappy movie on a Sunday afternoon on Netflix because it's the one thing I can do, and my brain just seriously goes into like mode. It doesn't do anything. One caveat on that though, don't have your bloody phone in hand because then you'll start doing something else. So if you really want to relax, find that one thing that turns your brain off and just I'm not saying you want to do that every afternoon because we'll all just turn into a pack of zombies, but maybe try that. Make that a ritual, a little special thing you do when you really are tired and you really need some time just to chill. Maybe Netflix does it for you too. I don't know. But as I said, that's the one thing that really turns my brain off, and it can be really great after a busy weekend. Another thing that I've got here on my list is podcasts. I do listen to a lot of podcasts, typically because I drive a lot, but I can find them helpful as well to help me switch off and think about other things. But please beware of what podcasts you're listening to, because maybe if you're listening to this one, it will definitely be triggering ideas. If you're listening to other sort of business related podcasts, they could be triggering ideas, but find ones that you find are relaxing. I've started listening to a few just conversational ones with influential people, and they're pretty sort of intellectual in a way, and I definitely am not. So, it's just nice listening to what they're talking about, their passions, and all of that sort of stuff. And I do find that helps me switch off and stop thinking about work. But as I said, just be careful which ones you pick, because it could just start you down a whole other path and it's not going to be helpful at all. Something else that I've tried recently to help focus my mind on tasks and stop me getting distracted is listening to music. Now, that might be really obvious for a lot of people, but I've never been a big music listener. I shouted myself some AirPods, I think it was last year, and I've started using them just around the house when I'm cleaning or I'm just doing things that aren't related to work, life things that you've got to do. I find that really helpful. Whatever the mood, the playlist goes with that, but it distracts me and I sort of keep on task with that. So maybe you can give that a go as well. Right. What other things we've got? I've got listed here, keep a worry notebook. Now, this is definitely something I've done for years. I started doing this in my early 20s when I lived in the UK. I had a very stressful job and I am a stressor. Okay. Just put that out there. And I would just wake up in the middle of the night with all sorts of crazy things on my mind and I couldn't get back to sleep. So I started writing them down. And I found as soon as that idea or stress, whatever it was written down so I could not forget it, my mind would just move on. So I highly recommend that. A notebook rather than your phone, because again, once we pick up that phone, we're going to do something else with it. So I now have random pieces of paper sort of around the house. So it sort of looks like a bit of a shit show sometimes. But that's where I write things if I think of things when I'm supposed to be doing something else. So a random idea might come to my head and I just jot it down. And it really helps my brain move on. Say, okay, yep, tick, you've logged that down so that you can come back to that tomorrow when you're actually sitting in the office doing your work and you're not going to forget it. So I really recommend that. Great little tip. And maybe you just need to have a few random notebooks floating around your house or your car or whatever. Or one other great thing I've noticed when I'm driving is that I now do voice notes. So I keep saying this. I drive a lot. I do drive a lot. And I do find that that's probably an okay time to think about work things, and I do think about work things. But yeah, I take voice notes. So just through the phone system, I can tell it to take a note and it jots things down for me as well. So possibly you could even do that on your phone. But my thing is just try not to pick up the phone, because then we're going to start looking at our emails. We're going to start doing socials. We're going to do other things that are going to get us working and thinking about work stuff rather than, what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know, like chilling out with our friends. Now, here are a couple of tips that I got out of ChatGPT after I asked it to give me some ideas for helping people to switch off at the end of the day. Now, these are really quite specific to probably people working at home, but they might be helpful for others. So, the first one is set a clear finish line. So, have a time that you will finish work. So suggestions are here is to set an alarm on your phone, an alarm that's going to tell you it's time to finish work, whether that's 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever your set work finish time is. You really need to pop that in as a little reminder of, you know, when you should finish. So the idea is that it signals to your brain that, oh, it's time to finish work. And then you start to do that. So I've really liked that because I struggle with that. I work from home. I'll sometimes spend my day in the office and would have wanted to do other things with my day, but I will get sucked in and spend a lot more time. So something definitely I'm going to try is setting an alarm. Oh, the wind's blowing and all the leaves are falling on me. Setting an alarm on my phone to tell me finish work. So I'm hoping that will help. Another little tip for finishing your day, especially again if you're working from home, from a home office, is to have some sort of shutdown ritual. So when you're at your desk, you want to signal to your brain that you're finishing work. So that would be writing a list of to do items for tomorrow. It would be tidying up your space. So then your brain is going, okay, we've finished this task and now it's time to move on to relaxing and hanging out with my family and friends. So again, that's what I'm going to try because my office is crazy. I just like slam down the computer when I've had enough and walk away. And there's definitely no ritual going on. So I'm going to try that. And it might also help me clean up my desk a little bit as well. If I started this clean your desk at the end of the day. So that's a nice little one to try. But the last thing I wanted to note on this is training. We need to train ourselves. We need to put systems in place. Systems? I don't know if that's the right word, but we need to put something in place to help us. And we also need to train ourselves. So, particularly, I keep going back to the phone, but I personally think that that's the biggest problem I know for me is that that phone is there. So train ourselves not to constantly pick up the phone all the time. Maybe that's by removing the things that are on the phone that make us want to look at it all the time. Go lightly on yourself. Maybe you'll completely fall apart and, you'll be doing all those bad habits again, but just keep trying it. As I said, I flit here to there. Sometimes I'm really, really great in switching off at the end of the day. And then other times I'm terrible and I can't turn off. So it's just something that we keep doing. We just need to have to keep training ourselves to switch off and find other things to focus on at the end of the day. Oh, one other thing I had written down here, because again, that's something I haven't done it for a while, but I do recommend if you can, and I understand that not everyone can completely do this, is because I'm doing it this weekend. I'm going camping with my son and go somewhere where there's no phone signal. Bloody awesome. There is nothing you can do then. And I will admit, sometimes it takes a couple of days to get into that if, you're taking a long period. But when you're somewhere without phone signal, there's nothing you can do. So you really can't work in a sense if you're working on your device or calling people or emailing, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'd give that a go too if you're able to. And it's obviously not something you can do all the time because your business is really going to go to shit unless you've got someone else managing it for you. But maybe you need to do that occasionally. If you're really, really struggling and you're tired and you really need to connect with yourself and everything else other than work, maybe just go somewhere without phone signal. And you don't have to go camping in a tent. Maybe you just, I don't know. There are plenty of places out there without phone service and without Wi Fi. Just maybe go do that. Treat yourself. Have 2 days away from everything just to reconnect and then come back with a bit of an action plan of not having those apps on your phone, setting up some time limits. That could be a really great reset. As I said, I don't have all the answers. I'm just sort of throwing a lot of things out there, trying to find different things that work for me. And as I said, maybe they'll work for you too. Give it a go. But it is a real struggle and yeah, it can be tiring sometimes when you're constantly thinking about work and you're constantly coming up with new ideas and all those things that we do as creative people. So, yeah, I hope today's episode made sense. I did write this great big list of notes, but I find it difficult to read notes whilst also talking. So, I think I stayed sort of on track. I'd love to hear from you if you've got anything else that you've tried to help with turning off at the end of the day to help you sort of focus on just being in the moment with your friends and your family and the rest of your life, not just work. And as I said, always just let me know if there is anything else you want to hear from. I love chatting to you guys and I love hearing from you as well. So that's it. Thank you very much. And I will chat to you again in 2 weeks. See ya.